a good leader plays chess and not checkers, but I look at it as a game of spades. And what I'm doing is I'm holding that diamond in my hand. Others may look at it as, oh, with no experience, but they're bringing that positivity. And so if you have that two of diamond, make sure that you're playing your hands correctly.
You're not a leader until you've created a leader, right? Because we have to constantly think about, when I've moved up, who's going to replace me, right? And I think about it from a talent acquisition standpoint is when I worked in corporate talent acquisition, so much of what I advocated for was we need to hire, yes, but we also need to look at our current team and say, if we had 6 to 9 months to train somebody, who is your top player, right? And why aren't you already training them? Because that mitigates us having to hire at a high level to promote from within and then backfill with one of those diamonds in the rough so that by the time that next person is promoted, like you're saying, you've already got somebody ready to go. And they don't have to be the most experienced. They don't have to be, the best person for that job, but they have the right attitude, right? And they have that grit and that hunger and they want that next step. And so you can count on them to do that as long as you treat them well, provide them with the resources and have a good culture. And I think that's something a lot of practices have yet to grasp and understand, because a lot of times hiring is thought of like a reactive measure rather than a proactive thing. And they look for the tenured, most experienced, fanciest resume person, but then fail to see that if they had just taken a chance on maybe somebody less experienced, then they would probably already be 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. And I think even sometimes as leaders, we have to be willing to move out of the way. Or do we become stagnant, or do we become stuck in where we are?
Yeah.
And doing that, we're hindering someone else's growth, I would say. So we have to be willing to grow in order to, once again, not hinder those that are falling behind us. I share, like, I have a new grandbaby. I don't desire to work, all of my life. So I want to acquire, desire to retire at one point in time in my life. So preparing that next leader, but are we sharing that information? Are we holding it all to ourselves? And so it's really important as leaders that we are sharing that information and that we're moving out of the way so that leader can step into that role.
Thanks for tuning in to the Healthy Careers Podcast. In 2024, we reached over 32,000 listeners and ranked in the top 15% of all podcasts. We're proud to have SharePro Health as a sponsor and are currently looking for 2 more partners in 2025. If you're looking to connect with healthcare leaders, providers, and innovators, we'd love to spread the word about your service, product, or business. Reach out to me, Maddie, for more details. Yeah. And like you said, having the conversations, I think some people, they're scared to advocate for themselves because they feel like if their leader thinks that they're not happy where they're at, that somehow that means they're going to leave if they don't get what they want. But if you have open dialogue with your team about, hey, this is my plan for you, right? Like, here's what I foresee. Here's the growth plan. Here's what my plan is. And as long as that's also aligning with your goals and your vision, and that sounds good, we'll get you there, right? And it might not be a year from now. It might not be 6 months from now. But I think too many people shy away from having those conversations because they think they have the fear of rejection of no, right? Like that's the worst answer you're going to get, or not right now. But I think it's important in our careers to say, here's what I'm looking forward to, right? And how can I get there? And a good leader and how you determine if you're somewhere where you should stay rather than leave, I think, is when you have that conversation, your leader supports it and they actually help you rather than see it as a threat to either their job or see it as a threat to the organization or whatever else.
Yeah. And I'm really big on, of course, I've had some that I consider as blossom, but they blossomed outside of the practice to where there may not have been an opportunity, a better opportunity that was presented outside of the practice. And sitting down with them, one thing I can say that I love is that I've built that relationship with them to where they trust, like, I'm not going to steer them in the wrong direction. And so I had one of the hardest conversations with one of my team members who, of course, recently accepted a position as a coder. Hey, Ruschell, I feel bad about leaving. No, you've worked so hard for this. I support you 10,000%, not just 100%, but 10,000%. I am your biggest cheerleader. And one thing I love with working with entry-level positions or overseeing entry-level positions is that the goal is to bring them in, to give them the exposure. And of course, hey, are you open, or are you looking, what is your goals? Are you looking to grow horizontally, vertically? Like, what is your goals with joining Midlands, and what can we do to help you achieve those goals? But there have been certain times to where there have been openings internally in the practice. I've already advocated for them. I know that they'll be great at that before they come in and have that conversation to say, Ruschell, of course, am interested in applying for that position. I know that you can do it. So being willing, of course, to let go and allow them to grow is another quality that you must have as a leader, not keeping them in that place just to fill a role. But the goal is to, once again, help that next leader to grow into where they desire to be.
100%. And I think there's also some people that are completely happy with where they're at, right? Like I've seen
That's
that
true.
too. And that's fine as well. Like sometimes you have someone that's like, hey, look, I actually don't want to hustle more and I appreciate my job and I want to go home and not have to worry about anything. So I'm fine where I'm at, and that there's nothing wrong with that either, but I find that most people in the medical field are like the type A goal driven, types of folks that typically it's the opposite of that.